So today we're going to talk about how to lower your insurance costs through trucking compliance. My name is Caroline, and I am the digital marketing manager here at Bobtail. Welcome to this online workshop. So lots of topics available already on our YouTube channel. So go on over to our channel and subscribe. We also have a ton of other videos, how-tos on how to book loads, how to find loads, different tutorials. So if that's interesting to you, again, go over and subscribe. We also have a great blog that captures all this information, and I will actually be publishing a blog that's a recap of this event. Also have a free Facebook group that you can join and ask questions. We monitor that every day so that we make sure that we're answering all of your questions. We also have a new podcast. Sandeep Singh, who is our COO and founder of Bobtail, we together are hosting this podcast called This Week in Trucking, and we go through freight market updates, diesel prices, and the top stories that we think are the most important for small carriers and owner-operators to know. Go on over to YouTube and check it out. We're also on Spotify. Nothing in this event today should be used as legal advice. It is intended for education, for information, for getting you started. If you have compliance or legal questions, we highly recommend that you reach out to a trusted professional to help you with those questions. And who better to reach out to than our fabulous guest today, Sandeep Singh of DeepCompliance, who is an expert with over a decade of experience with FMCSA compliance. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sandeep.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you again. Yeah, so a little bit of my background. You mentioned my name already, Sandeep Singh. I'm the founder and the director of DeepCompliance Services based in Maryland. We've been providing services for over 11, 12 years. So basically what we do, we provide safety and compliance services. We help carriers to stay focused on their safety scores, on their violations, data queues, how they can reduce the insurance, how these violations impact driver trainings, driver files, and also we are also getting into a little bit about IFTA reportings and audits, the safety audits, new entrant audits. So we help them to stay focused and to reduce any violation on the road or stay away from the DOT or FMCSA investigations.
So just the really easy stuff about trucking, right? That's your job, right? That's what you deal with. No,
yeah, exactly.
This is potentially the most difficult thing, arguably the thorn in the side of every owner operator and small fleet manager. So we are so grateful to have you here. I want to get started with a little bit of why we are here. So I just mentioned we're at the Mid-America Truck Show. We talked to a lot of trucking business owners about what are the biggest challenges. And the number 1 and 2, maybe 50-50, is getting good rates per mile, so getting good paying loads, and keeping up with compliance. That was those were the biggest challenges. And we've already talked a lot in the past about how to increase revenue and how to increase your rate per mile. Go check out the other event recordings that we have available on YouTube for that. But today we're going to talk about compliance. We know that insurance is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, fixed expense that a trucking company has, right? And commercial auto liability insurance has been on the rise. That cost of that kind of insurance has been on the rise. Now, how much you are paying per month for your insurance premiums is directly related to your safety track record, right? If anyone is willing to put who they are insured by in the chat, that would be great. Bobtail is not an insurance company, but we do have an insurance provider that we're partnered with. So we can connect you with someone if you're looking for that service, but it would be interesting to know who you are insured with right now, in case there's, any connections that we can make there. But this is why you're seeing increased rates of insurance generally across the board. If you are a trucking company, it's many times due to safety violations or violations in compliance. And so that's why we've brought Sandeep here to talk about how trucking companies can reduce this cost. So Sandeep, can you talk a little bit about your experience in trucking compliance? So how did you get into the trucking compliance space, and what's kept you here all these years?
Yeah, so actually my background is in business management, and I started as a transportation manager back in 2007. And then I was promoted as a transportation manager. And we were actually, there was a fleet of 200 plus trucks. And I took over the compliance side after a couple of years. And what was actually fascinating that it was so much fun to run the data, to see where we are going, and also checking like every day how many truck got inspected, and how many actually passed the inspection, how many violations we got, and then taking from there to develop the trainings for the drivers, and develop the programs, customize the program as per the violation. So it was so much fun, especially the training part. And then after a couple of years, I decided to have my own compliance company, and we've been in market since 2012, 2013, and then started with a single client. Now we have over 200 clients, and the fleets with one driver, one truck, and we have companies with 50, 60, or 70 trucks as well.
Wow. So can you talk a little bit about, in your experience, what do the safety scores have to do with the cost of insurance? Is this often the reason that people come to you?
Yeah, I mean, it is, yes, it's one of the reasons, but the most important part is the insurance, and also the audits, and the denial from the brokers, and the flags, and the audit letter, like I mentioned, and also the warning from the DOT department. So the insurance cost, actually, the insurance carriers, they are always watching your DOT scores. But let me give you a little bit of background on safety scores and how they affect your insurance rate. So the DOT CSA, they since 2010, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has been compiling data and publishing data, which helps carrier also to see where they at. They have built the thresholds for each category. We will talk about the basics a little bit. So the collection of the data, which comes through the agency called SMS, Safety Management System, it's been around since 2010. So basics are basically 7 categories: unsafe driving, hour of service. Then you have vehicle maintenance, drug and alcohol program, driver fitness, hazardous material, and insurance. So these are the 7 categories. If you have a poor basic scores, your carrier is at risk of being investigation by FMCSA as an unsafe carrier. Many shippers also regularly review the carrier basic scores, and some won't even give you business if your safety scores are down. Insurance carrier, like I mentioned, also view basic scores as part of their evaluation of the carrier's overall fitness and risk profile. Higher CSA scores can lead to higher premiums, deductibles, or even denial of coverage. Mostly they watch vehicle maintenance basics, and also through basics violations such as brakes, lights, mechanical defects, and failure to make required repairs. So they're watching the vehicle maintenance, and also the most important one, the unsafe driving, which includes speeding, seatbelt violations, cell phone violations, improper lane changes, or driving in the wrong lane. So unsafe driving and vehicle maintenance, if you are above the threshold, it can easily trigger higher premiums and higher insurance rate.
Yeah, that's good to know which categories in there are the most important to focus on.
Yep.
If you're just getting started on measuring these and making changes, you probably want to focus on those two, the
Yep.
unsafe driving and vehicle maintenance.
Yep.
So we've talked about the CSA basics and why they're so important. Can you show us how carriers can keep track of these safety scores? So I imagine that the first step in trying to manage your scores and keeping up with compliance is to know where you stand as a carrier. If you don't know where you're starting from, then you don't know how to improve. So how should folks be looking at these safety scores? Where do we access them? How do you log in? Kind of the basics around that.
Yeah, sure. So there's a website called, actually, maybe I should be able to share my screen here.
Yeah, absolutely. So share your screen. I will stop presenting my my presentation for now, and feel free to share your screen and show us where we can get this information.
Sure. Can you see my screen?
I can't.
How about now?
Ah, there we go. There it is. Super.
Okay. So the website's called it's called Safer. If you Google Safer, it should pop up. But the website address is safer.fmcsa.gov, .dot.gov. And if you scroll down and click on the company snapshot here, so I'm gonna use one of my clients, DOT, and I have permission. I got his consent to use this as a demo.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so we're gonna use this carrier. So when you enter your DOT number, you should see the screen. He's currently not authorized to hire because of the higher insurance rate. So it's a good example. So here you see if they are authorized. They recently changed the layout, FMCSA. So you see if they are authorized for hire or not authorized. It means that they can still run intrastate, but they cannot run interstate. So they are good to go within Indiana, but they cannot go outside of Indiana. So the US DOT is active, but the MC authority is not active. So if you want to see your safety scores, your 7 basics, all you have to do is hit the SMS results. And here you have your 7 categories: unsafe driving, crash indicators, hour of service, vehicle maintenance, controlled substance and alcohol, hazardous material and compliance, and driver fitness. So let me talk a little bit more about unsafe driving and the one second. So what unsafe driving is? So operating in general, operating a commercial motor vehicle in a dangerous or careless manner, for example, speeding, reckless that I mentioned, driving, improper lane change, or inattention, seat belts, cell phone. These violations, they sits in this category, unsafe driving. Crash indicator is basically your SMS, your accidents, your crashes. So now there are 2 types of crashes. Some of the crash, fender bender, they're not gonna be under this category. The crash only goes under the crash indicator category if the vehicle is either towed, if there is an injury, or if there is a fatality on scene. So then and it doesn't matter if it either is your vehicle got towed or the other parties involved vehicle got towed. Either way, even if your vehicle skid in wintertime, or if you are just lost control or something happened and your vehicle got towed, it's gonna still sit in the crash indicator category. So these are the crashes. Then hour of service is, of course, your ELD violations, your hour of service related violations. Vehicle maintenance is basically all the vehicle failure to properly maintain your vehicle. Example violations are brakes, lights, other mechanical defects, and failure to make required repairs. The controlled substance and alcohol operation of commercial vehicle by
Center, how can I help you? Hey, is Eric around? Eric Sanchez?
Hey, Azal, I think you've got your microphone on. If you could just mute it for us, that would be great. Thank you so much. All right, keep going.
So like I was saying, so controlled substance and alcohol, it's basically if a driver is driving under the influence or impaired due to alcohol, illegal drugs, misuse of prescription or over-the-counter medications. These are the violations that's going to sit here. Hazardous material, if the company is have a hazardous material permit, any hazardous material related violation will sit here. And the driver fitness. So driver fitness is basically operation of commercial vehicle by drivers who are unfit to operate a commercial vehicle due to lack of training, experience, or medical qualification. Some of the examples are failing to have a valid and appropriate commercial driving license or being medically unqualified to operate a commercial vehicle. So those violations will sit under the driver fitness category. So let's take a look to the driver unsafe driving violations. So under the violation summary, you can see the violations here. Speeding.
And am I right in thinking, Sandeep, that all of this is public information, right?
Yes.
If I wanted to look up any trucking company's records, I could look them up.
Exactly. So your insurance, they can look it up. Anybody, and the truck US DOT numbers are displayed outside of the trucks. So even if the truck is driving unsafe, you just know that 7 digits of DOT number. You Google it, you check it, you will see the history and everything. So insurance company, carriers, general public, they all have access to this data. So you see the speeding violations are here. Crash indicators, this is not public, so they will not show any of the crash. They didn't have any crash, but even if there's a crash, they will not show. So you have to have your DOT PIN number. You have to log in to see the driver name and your crashes. Some of the information is not public here. So you have to log in to in order to use. And for that login, you have to have your DOT PIN number. That's the most important thing. For the new carriers, when you get your new DOT number, your new MC number, that's the first thing I would do to order the PIN number. And they recently stopped sending the PIN numbers via email, but you can still request via mail, and it takes 3 to 4 business days. So that PIN number will help you to see the driver names, your truck information, also some of the information that is not public. You can view that. So hour of service, as you can see, quite a few violations. So you can see with violations or without violations, some of the clean, they checked the logs, everything was good to go. So good, bad, everything related to hour of service gonna stay here for 2 years. So once you receive the violations, so one other thing I want to clarify here, generally the drivers, when they get pulled over at the scale, and sometimes there are two things. They receive either a violation or citation. Sometimes they receive both. So they are two different things. Citations are given to the drivers. They are assigned to the drivers, and the fine or penalty or warning, whatever. The violations are assigned to the carriers. So I have seen from my experience, most of the owner operators, especially, they just say, "Oh, I just got the warning from the police officer. He just said this is a violation. It's just a warning. Nothing's gonna go on your individual record." But it's important to understand that any violations you are getting from the scale, that violation is gonna stay on your company record for 2 years, and it's gonna impact your DOT scores. So it's important to know that what's the difference. And some of the violations you can challenge through the data queue. We will talk about that a little bit later, but you can challenge some of the violation and get them removed. And if you receive a citation and violation at the same time, then you can go to the code. If you feel like this is, not correct, or there's not, you can challenge it. Then if it get removed in the code, then you can go back and through data queue, you can remove from your company safety score as well. The other thing I want to, so vehicle maintenance, same thing, vehicle maintenance violations will stay here. Brake connections with leak connection. Let's see here, brakes, tire. So most common vehicle maintenance violations are actually related to the tires or brakes. So those are the main two categories where you will receive. And both of these, anything related to the brakes, if is not correct or the brakes are not operating accordingly, then you will be placed out of service. Brakes or tires, they both are out of service. You will placed out of service, and you will not be allowed to leave the scale or that inspection site until you fix the issue. And then controlled substance. This is driver related. If the driver is impaired, then those violations sits here, and then hazardous material and driver fitness, anything related to the CDLs or medical cards, these violations will stay here. And it's very easy, but it's just the most of the, I would say, the owner operators and especially the companies, they pay attention to this data when it's kind of too late and they're already flagged. So knowing the SMS safety management system and familiarizing yourself is the most important thing when you are in trucking business, because the insurance is going to know, the broker is going to know, the DOT and FMCS, everybody's going to know. And if you don't know, then there's a big issue.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've already kind of alluded to this, but what would you say more specifically? I think probably the number one biggest mistake that a carrier can make is not paying attention to this soon enough, right?
Yeah. Yes.
What do you think are some of the other common mistakes that people make when it comes to compliance in trucking?
Yeah, so I would say lack of awareness of regulations as well. Because sometimes if you don't know, you don't know. When you get DOT, so what we do, we also help people opening LLCs and getting the DOT and getting the MC numbers as well, the permits. So one thing is part of our the training is that we tell them what are the most common violations in each category, how they can protect themselves, and knowing the regulation. For example, the hour of service regulations got changed recently, so keeping up to date, keeping up with these regulations, and for owner operator, I would say they need to know these regulations, what is required for maintaining the vehicle, for unsafe driving, what are the violations there, and how they can prevent. And for the carrier with the 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or with multiple drivers, I think the number one issue is the miscommunication. For example, I have seen that the company received 3 violations in 2 weeks, and only the driver know, and the supervisor who's handling that violation knows about it. The owner doesn't know about it. The other drivers don't know that this is what's going on. So the second factor is when you have over 10 trucks, or you are the carrier with the multiple drivers, if you receive a violations, every single driver need to know that this is what's going on. You don't need to mention driver name or any information, but you can prevent a lot more violations if you stay proactive and just let everybody know, hey, this is what happened. We need to make sure every single truck has these papers, or check your truck if your lights are working properly. We received this light violation, or any paper is missing or anything. Because the chances are, if your fleet is it's if you're having any paper, or for example some missing papers are not there, for example insurance paper is not there, or ELD manuals or ELD instruction sheets are not in the truck, that's a violation. And if one truck doesn't have it, the chances are the other truck is not going to have it. So miscommunication and the lack of awareness and knowing the basics are the most common.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting that you say about sharing that information among inside the organization. So if you have more than a couple of trucks, it's worth it to have some kind of channel, text group or something across the company that says, hey, like you said, you don't necessarily need to tell who it was or whose fault it was. It's not about that. It's about making sure that everybody in the company knows what happened and how to avoid it. I wonder if there are some groups, and let us know if anyone who's here on the line now has an idea of a group like this, like a Facebook group or a WhatsApp group of owner operators that kind of do that for each other. That would be kind of a cool community to have. Do you know of anything like that, Sandeep?
Yeah, so actually, most of the carriers, they use WhatsApp, but I mean, it has some drawbacks as well. So ELD companies are coming up with this solution actually. So you can send a mass notification to your drivers, and it will show under a message, and they can respond to the message within the ELD. So I think Motive has that, or they are testing this this channel, but I think this will solve the industry-wide problem to have a immediate, or if they can even attach the inspection sheet or whatever and send it to them, and making sure send the instructions or even trainings or quick quick tips, or so that's the number one thing. When the carriers with the bad safety rating, they come on board with DeepCompliance, that's what we do. We build a bridge. The number one thing is the communication. So that's always the priority. And yeah, that's where we start actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right that WhatsApp groups, Facebook groups, they have their drawbacks, right? There's no one there kind of, authorizing or monitoring that content. So there's the potential for misinformation to happen on that, and miscommunications as well. But I do think that could be a cool, a type of group or community to create that at least alerts you to a possible trend or a possible change. You mentioned, Sandeep, that keeping up with the regulations themselves can be a challenge. What is the best source of information that owner operators should be subscribed to? Is there some kind of newsletter or webpage that they should be reading every week or month to get up to date on the changes in compliance?
Yeah, so there is actually a newsletter from FMCSA. They can sign up for that newsletter, and it's weekly, monthly, and I think quarterly. So those newsletter actually pretty good. They will let you know about upcoming regulation change, or they will let you know if there's a regulation they've been trying and you want to be part of it. So those are the FMCSA. They have really good. There are a couple other companies, and I can share that information later. But they are actually doing, and those are free as well. So again, I think weekly, spending like 30 minutes or even 20 minutes weekly or bi-weekly, it's totally worth it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm noticing that there are more than 24 newsletters that the FMCSA has on their website. So that is a lot of information. I will definitely appreciate a list of other companies that have kind of stepped in to maybe simplify this information a little bit. But it looks like they have some generic ones, facts and research, and then rules and regulation. They actually have, looks like they have 6 different areas of to subscribe to. So drug and alcohol, medical program, hours of service, ELDs, NAFTA rules, and rules and regulations overview. So those are definitely good newsletters to keep in touch. And I think that's a good, strategy is one thing, but habits are often even more powerful than thinking of a compliance strategy. It's setting aside your half hour or 20 minutes on whatever Wednesday afternoon to sit down and read up about the different updates that regulations have gone through. I think that's a really smart tip to share. So can you tell us a little bit about, in your experience, what are those top most common violations that you see in maybe those top two basics that you mentioned, unsafe driving and vehicle maintenance?
Yeah, so the top violations always, so every year the FMCSA, they do roadside events. It happens in May, so it's next month, and it's always last week. I'm not sure about the dates, but it's always last week of May. So those 3 days, they focus on either the braking system or tire-related issues, an hour of service. So this year, let's take a look what they're going to focus. So these 3 days, they have most of the state troopers, all FMCSA force they are on the scales. They have the stops. So they actually, it's a big event. So they make sure that they check as many as trucks they can in 3 days, and they let you know beforehand. So let me actually see if we have that roadside event 2000. And
yeah, it looks like it's happening May 5th through the 11th this year. So maybe a little bit earlier.
Yeah, they change it all the time. So it's May 14 to May 16. No, this is the schedule. Yes, it's May. This is May 14 through May 16.
Oh, I see. Yep.
So this year, this year they're gonna focus on 2 factors: tractor protection system and alcohol and controlled substance possessions. So these 2 categories, they pick and choose these 2 categories. So these 2 categories, they're gonna controlled substance and alcohol possession, and they're gonna also focus on the drug and alcohol clearinghouse. So that's something they started a couple years ago, and I have seen there are several carriers. I would say 40% of the carriers, they still don't know how to set up, how to get enrolled, and how to be in compliance with the drug and alcohol clearinghouse. So this is something new regulation, and I recommend that all carrier, all owner operator should familiarize with this. And if you haven't signed up, you should sign up for this program as well.
Unfortunately, I think the kind of carriers that are really already on top of these things are the types of people that come to these events. So maybe we're sort of preaching to the choir right now, but let us know if you have signed up for the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse, and if you have any questions about that in the chat. We would love to know what questions you have about that. Sandeep, can you just give us a quick overview of the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse, what it's there, why it's there, and how carriers can see if they're compliant with that?
Yeah, so basically, there was a gap in between the drug and alcohol testing. So the gap was that when driver, either pre-employment or the random drug test, when driver fails a drug test, the driver knew that the driver failed the drug test, and the testing facility knew that the driver failed the drug test. There was no in between, or there was nothing, I would say, a shared space for everybody, for the carriers, for the drivers, for the drug alcohol providers, for the new carriers, to know there was no system in place to make sure that everybody knows that the driver has failed the drug and alcohol testing. So what FMCSA did to fill this gap, they created this drug and alcohol clearinghouse program. So what happens now, if I fail a drug test, this database, the testing facility and the MRO, medical review officer, they're going to enter the information in this database called clearinghouse. So this information sits there, and as you know, the driver has to complete a return to duty program. So they have to go to the rehab, get the classes, get the training, and get the tested, and they have to get tested negative, and then they can restart the driving. So now so when the FMCSA, they pull you over on the scale, they can just enter your driver credential, and they can know that if the driver has failed the drug test, or if they have completed the return to duty program or not. So all information sits there, and even new carriers, when they log in, they are required, when they hire you as a driver, they are required to run a query in the database to make sure that you don't have any drug and alcohol related issues, and if you had, then you have completed the return to duty program. Yeah.
Right. And would you say that it's most of the time when your customers come and they're not knowledgeable about this clearinghouse, is it that they haven't signed up at all, or they've signed up but they haven't completed the registration?
So most of them, they have signed up, but they don't know how it works. They don't know how to run a query. They don't know how to buy a query. There are two types of queries. One is limited, one is full query. They don't know what type of queries they should do. So for example, when you're hiring a new driver, you need to do a full query. You have to get a consent from the driver. And every year you're required to do a full query, and not full query is for the pre-employment, and the other query is for the annual, and it's called annual query, which is you can have a written consent from driver and you can run. So they don't know about these queries, and then basically they're signed up, but they are not totally in compliance with the program.
Right. Just kind of treat it like a set it and forget it thing. Oh, I've signed up on there, so I know what I'm doing. Jose, do you have a question for us?
Can I add something to that conversation?
Absolutely. Go for it.
All right. There is labs where they do all the type of tests. You sign up with them, and they would do every 3 months a random test. You might get called for alcohol or drugs, and you got to do it in the next 30 days. Negative, they would negative the information over to the FMNCI. But you got to sign up with a company with a lab, so they can do that for you. You don't have to do nothing anymore. They would send it over to you.
Yeah, so that's called actually random program enrollment. So basically, that's one of the requirement as well, that you have to sign up for the random drug and alcohol program, and you randomly get picked, and within 30 days you have to complete that program, complete the testing. And also if you get tested positive, then the clearinghouse kicks in, and then that's how it goes. So yes, Jose, to your point, yes, you have to sign up for the random enrollment program as well.
Yeah, good points. Excellent. So you mentioned before that there's a way to dispute some of the violations that come up and to improve your safety scores. And that's really kind of so obviously keeping track of your safety scores and compliance is really important, staying on top of it. Once you see violations come through and you think that you could dispute some of those, how would one go about knowing which violations can be disputed and which ones have a good or decent chance at coming through and improving my score?
Yes, so the program calls data queues. It's called the queue means quality, so they want to keep the quality data, and if there's anything wrong. So sometimes what happens is, if you're monitoring your DOT and the CSA scores, suddenly out of blue a violation pops up, and it doesn't even your truck, not even your driver. So sometimes what happens, the officers, they make a mistake, just a one-word mistake of DOT number, and boom, it's gonna assign to a wrong carrier. So you can actually dispute those violations through data queue. You can sign up as a motor carrier, as a driver, FMCSA, state policy. This is for the police officers and public and industry. So this is also one of our program that we offer to our clients. Most of the clients with the multiple truck, they don't have to do, they don't have time to do these type of things. So we provide these services, and we send them monthly reports on their violations. Also send them the training to the drivers if the driver got involved in an accident or Unsafe Driving Act. So those are part of our program. But back to the data queue, you can sign up as a driver, and you can dispute your owner operator violations as well. Sometimes if you feel like sometimes the officer, they didn't even listen to you and they just assigned and rushed to you can actually challenge those violations as well, and you can come forward with your statement that this is what exactly happened with the proof. Hour of service violations I have seen assigned to wrong carrier. Sometimes even crashes or the accidents, they were assigned to wrong carrier. So it's very important. This is why it's important to keep track of your SMS scores, that if you are ever out of blue, you see something that is not even yours, then you should dispute those. And
how long? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So the other thing is, if you receive, like I mentioned, if you receive a citation, speeding citation or seatbelt citation, or cell phone, or even some of the hour of service, and you feel like that you should dispute it, then you can go to the court, and if the charges, if they dismissed your charges, or if they even lower the charges, then you can go back and through data queue, you can submit the proof that this violation have been dismissed. The citation has been dismissed, and it will get removed from FMCSA. Of course.
Wow, that's really good to know. So you can even take legal action if your USDOT or MC numbers are at risk. Can you give us an example of a recent violation that you helped dispute for a carrier? You don't have to name names, just maybe the
so
situation.
mostly violations, most important, we help all the time with the citation when they go to the court and they get dismissed. That's the most common, and then we help them to remove, because the violation will still sit under carrier record if you don't take action and go through data queue. The other thing we have noticed is the accident. So some of the accidents, and they recently started this program like a couple of years ago. So some of the accidents, if they are not at your fault, for example, there are 4 or 5 categories. For example, if the other driver was impaired, or he was under the influence of drug or alcohol, and you have the police report, you can challenge that crash as well, and it will get removed. If the other driver, if you are standing at a light, you are still waiting for the light to turn green, and someone hits you from the back, that is also it's called preventable, non-preventable. So they are 2 categories. So that was actually totally non-preventable, because you are doing your job and someone hits you. And if someone is driving the opposite lane, or it's just so there are 4 or 5 categories. I don't remember exactly they are, but if you feel like that accident was totally non-preventable, then you can challenge that crash as well. And we mostly help because crashes have the bigger impact on your scores. If you have, in general, if you are driving 1 million miles a year, then the FMCSA, they kind of understand that, okay, one crash after 1 million is acceptable, because there's always risk on the road. So depending on the severity, they allow, not kind of allow, but it doesn't go over the threshold. So if you are driving less than that, then you have to be very careful. You have to make sure, because your company is going to get flagged right away. If you have one truck, you're driving only 200,000 miles a year, then it's going to get flagged. And you receive a couple more unsafe violations along with the crash. Now you have 2 flags, and you are going to receive a warning letter from FMCSA that, hey, you're unsafe driving and the crash indicator is above the threshold, which is 80 percentile. And we can actually have a separate webinar on how these things work, especially with the scores and thresholds. But you want to stay under those thresholds so your company don't get flagged and you don't get any intervention audits or investigations.
That's really good to know. I do think that we should have a whole other session about the clearinghouse.
Yes.
And about these thresholds, because I think that would be really useful to go into detail. We are coming up on our time now. We just have about 12 minutes left. So I want to open the floor to anyone here who might have a question for us, or for you, Sandeep, about compliance, where to find this information, or maybe how to use data queues. Does anyone have a question for Sandeep? Yes, no, maybe so. It is a lot of information that we've just shared, so it might just need a second to sink in a little bit. Tell us where we can reach you, Sandeep, if we do have questions about compliance. How could we get a hold of you?
Yeah, so we prefer our office number, which is 240-620-2331. And also you can send us email, deep.compliance@gmail.com. So those are the best way. We also have a Facebook page. I can share a link later with you, and you can add in your slide so they can, if people want, they can join. We post compliance stuff all the time on our Facebook page.
Awesome. Yeah. Brian, do you have a question for us?
Yeah, for Sandeep. So I'm a new venture. I have a driver in place. And for the pre-employment drug testing, can I just send them anywhere that's to any clinic that's DOT compliant? And once the results come in negative, can I just fill in that RTD for him after I do the full query on him and whatnot?
Yeah, so the first so the new entrant audit, when you start the new company, I want to give you a little bit of background why it's required. So you're going to get audited within 1 year, and the auditor's going to make sure that you are signed up for a random program. So you want to make sure that not only you doing the drug test and getting a negative result, you are also signed up for the random program, random drug and alcohol program.
Sandeep, these companies, the clinics, are they usually national companies, or do you have to have a local one? What do you recommend?
No, most of them, they have access to most of the labs. I would say most of the companies, you just signed up with them and then send them the zip code you are in and you want to get tested. They have assigned Concentra labs or other blood testing labs. Most of them work along with these companies, and they're authorized to use. So they're going to send you a form, and you take the form and go there, and they will not they're going to do the testing.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, Sandeep, thank you so much for joining us. These are our free events that we put on as Bobtail. We are a financial services company in the trucking industry. We mainly serve small carriers, so owner operators and folks with anywhere from 1 to 20, 25 trucks is usually who we serve. We've really built our factoring service around small carriers and to address the needs of small carriers. So if you're interested at all in our factoring service, we have no long-term contracts and no hidden fees. That means that we have a simple 30-day agreement with factoring. So you're never locked into the service. If you are unhappy with the service at any time, you can leave with 30 days notice and no termination fee. This is really different than most factoring services. Most factoring services will lock you into a contract of 1, 2, maybe even 3 years and charge an enormous fee for leaving that contract before the contract term is up. So even if you don't go with Bobtail, please do avoid a long-term contract, because if you're not happy with the service or they're charging exorbitant fees that you weren't aware of when you first signed up, it can be really difficult to get out of. If you are already in a long-term contract and you want to learn how you might be able to get out of it, because there is a way to get out of it, it may hurt a little bit, but there are some things that you can do to try and get out of those contracts. Please contact us. You can write to us at hello@bobtail.com. You can go to our website, bobtail.com, and fill out a form to get in touch with our team, or you can always give us a call any day, Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. And with that, thank you again, Sandeep, so much for being here. We are so grateful for your time. And I know that with 250 plus clients that you're managing right now, which is just laughable to me and unbelievable, that your time is very precious. So we really appreciate it. And really
Thank
grateful
you very much
for
for
having you.
having me. Yep, happy to be here. Thank you very much. If if you guys have anything else, you want any of like you mentioned a couple more, then I will happy to help.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Sandeep. We'll be in touch.
Yep. Okay,
Thanks everyone for coming.